See? If we just try to rely on our strengths, whatever our wounds are not going to be really completely healed. They might be modulated, minimized, but full healing, not really. Because the condition is not right. We're still using a volatile intellect, a volatile psychic facility to think about and respond to a volatile incident. See? Two volatilities. Problem. But if we can take our psychos force and move back and move from those conditions that are unstable or volatile to a stable condition, and then in that stable condition have an intuitive relationship with God, with the kingdom, and then take that condition and impose it upon our issues, we come at it. Then what can't we forgive? See? Because you have this mortal, temporal, unenlightened awareness looking at an issue. Is it really ever going to properly resolve unless you acquire an immortal, intuitive energy to put to your issues, to thoroughly resolve it, to completely resolve it, to resolve it eternally? See? That's the difference. That's like a Jesus, like a Buddha, see, like a Krishna. See? They realize this is all phenomenal, and that their real beingness was immortal, was blissful, was full param wisdom. See? That became their new identity, or their true identity. So, using the forces of their true identity, they dealt with the phenomena of life. See? That's how they could completely resolve it. So, by us practicing meditation, coming into a state of peace, of silence, of complete acceptance, and then in that state, these suppressions are released. And as these suppressions are released, and we're not holding and grabbing anything, more of the intuitive light can come in. Our sense of identity is now changing to a broader beingness, as opposed to our little constructed beingness, uninformed, constructed idea of self, to a far grander, far more supported sense of who we are, of self. See? A grander vision of self. And that will come through meditation, just by awareness, beingness, holding on to absolute silence, and judging nothing. Just being present. That becomes our new psychic disposition. See? Our new sense of self. And in that sense of self, we can deal with everything. See? We can do everything in a benevolent way, as Buddha did, as Jesus did, as Krishna did. See, so it's a new sense of self that has to be manifest. But in that new sense of self, there is a path of thorns that you must go through. All of those irritations, all of those frustrations, all of those past hurts, we can allow them to arise, but we don't engage with them as we used to engage with them. Oh, this hurt me. And then you start the drama again. You develop some new psychic drama based on that. Just let it be. Let it arise. Observe it. And then see what happens. You never saw what would happen if you just let it be. It arose. It was created. It arose. You stuffed it down. You never allowed to see what would happen if it went its full arc. See? And you were woefully unprepared to deal with it. That's why you did stuff it down. But in meditation, you're getting this whole body of energy, this whole body of stability. Now you can deal with it. See? Is it pleasant? No, it's not pleasant. Is it doable? Yes. Can you resolve it? Absolutely. See? So all that trunk of suppressions that you have are slowly being released. So of course, you have a different sense of life, a different sense of freedom, a different sense of joy. And you know how much psychic energy you're using to hold all that stuff down? What if all of a sudden that was freed up for your creativity, for your deeper perception of life? Why are all the saints happy? See, no matter what's going on, you know, they have a sense of ananda, a sense of joy. They have a sense of peace. You know, they know this war is going on and this corruption is going on, but they can see in it and through it and know it won't last. Yes?
So I guess I'm a little confused about that, tapping into that kingdom.
Yes.
And at the same time taking action in a situation of injustice, whether that's
sure.
social justice efforts or
Sure. No,
ending that war at the same time. So there's an action in a political arena which is extremely temporal, and you're saying it's coming to a place of forgiveness and love, and yet you're taking actions that are very strategic and have impact on people.
Oh, absolutely.
They may not want to have happen.
Yeah. The difference is that you are coming from a place of complete peace and deep wisdom. Now, you're okay. Within your being, you're okay. But you see the world, and you see the imbalances in the world, the corruptions of the world. It's perfectly fine to take action. But you're not taking action based on irritation or frustration. You're taking action based on attempting to bring the same harmony that you experience in the kingdom, to bring that harmony here. So you're taking it just as vital and active an action, but it's not on an emotional, psychological frustration. It's based on a loving compassion to bring harmony, to bring the same joy, the same healing, the same peace that you experience to whatever condition that you're dealing with.
But the minute you're taking action, aren't you exercising ego? And isn't that
Not necessarily.
Political difficulties are about, based in religious fanaticism, perhaps?
In general, the average human being, the human being who is unattached to the kingdom, is doing it based on their ego. The yogic person, the person who is involved in the deep process of yoga, has suspended their own ideas, their own agenda. They haven't thrown it out. They've just put it in a sense of suspension. And the difference is they ask the kingdom. They can sit quietly and put a question forth, and through intuitive inspiration, know exactly what to do. This is how Gandhi worked. Gandhi didn't have any agenda at all. He saw a social injustice and asked the kingdom what to do. You know, that's why he was so unique. All of India is trying to do things based on what they think. Gandhi attempted to make a social change based on the inspiration from God, which was sort of counterintuitive, because he practiced ahimsa, which allowed him, he had to go through a practice of tremendous self-sacrifice, even to the point of losing his life, see, or being imprisoned. The average person doesn't want to put themselves up on the front line, but he said, not only will I stand in the front line, I will do no harm. That was definitely an inspiration, and intuitive instructions from the kingdom to show how to resolve things in the most sublime way. So it's a matter of it's whether you're human or high yogi, you can take action. Absolutely, you can take action. But the question is what are you basing your action on? Are you basing your action on your psychological perception based on one limited human's ego? Or are you basing your action on the intuitive instructions that any human being can receive if they practice these prayer, mantra, meditation? See? If you study the Gita, there's sometimes you can. So Gandhi's one situation. There's another situation where Gandhi says the kingdom will say go to war, and there's actually a war will take place, and you'll be a warrior. But we're looking at the situation as if we're permanent beings, as we're from the kingdom's position, we're temporal phenomena. So the Gita says, if you think someone dies, there is no wisdom in that insight. You know, what is temporal will always be temporal. What is permanent will always be permanent. So we temporarily come to this body, that body, cycle after cycle, this idea, that idea, changing all the time. But what we are fundamentally is something of the kingdom, which is permanent. See? But because we get caught up in the drama of the moment, we think the moment is permanent. See? So, in the case of the Gita, Sri Krishna told Arjuna, go to war. And put a lot of pressure on him. Saying, this is your duty. Your duty is to protect Dharma or righteousness in the world. That is your duty. When it rises up, your job is to put it down. See? And to put it down in accordance with the ways of God. So there was no vengeance in the activity. It was like a physician saying, okay, there's cancer in the body. We'll remove the cancer, and but there's no maliciousness in removing the cancer. It's just a malignant condition that you want to remove, and then you want the body to thrive. See? So whether it's a political malignancy, sometimes it has to be removed by force. Sometimes the surgeon must take a scalpel to the malignancy. See? Other times he can treat it in a more benign way with chemicals. See? Or even with prayer. These are all different ways of treating it. But the thing is, you're treating the malignancy without maliciousness of heart. You're looking at the malignancy with a larger picture in your mind. You're just trying to bring back harmony. See? You want homeostasis to occur. You're not saying bag malignancy. You're just saying this is a malignant condition. It must be removed. That's it. There's no more thought to it. You're not, oh evil, oh bad, oh wicked, I'm going to punish you, I'm going to have reprisals. None of that. None of that. On one moment. On the battle of on the field of Kusetra, if a warrior put down his arms, immediately he'd be spared. There was no, you're a bad guy, off with your head. There was none of that. None of that. You could walk off the field and be treated as a guest the very next moment. See? There was no sense of anger or reprisal. The moment you put down your weapon, or the moment you said, I'm going to leave the field, that was it. See? Even though moments before you were in bitter conflict. But the moment there was, putting down of the weapons, you were forgiven immediately. Forgiven and embraced immediately. See? It was done with a high psychic dharma in the mind. See? This is a Christ mind. This is a Buddha mind. This is a Krishna mind. See? We, as sort of social activists, come at it with a human mind. See? Uninformed by the inspiration of the kingdom. So it's important to really study the lives of saints so that you can see them going through all of the social inequities, all of the social conditions, and how did they deal with it. The key is to study the psychology of the saints, because those are the souls who are in tune with the kingdom and acting in their time in the conditions that they live. See? So there is a way, as opposed to having all the conditions of the world, high and low, and then acting with it from one's own limited egoic point of view. See? So we study the lives of saints who have gone through every manner of suffering, but they've gone through it in a sanctified way. And that's what we have to learn to emulate. Okay? Is there there was a question? Yes.
I was just going to resonate with a point, because when I look at Gandhi, it becomes clear to me, because he was a mortal man in our time.
Exactly.
And when you think about the things that he did, like even in his experiments of truth, and his ego couldn't have even come up with some of those solutions, like
Right.
the
It's completely-
Darsana salt works, and
Exactly. It
Just-
was intuitive.
it had to be greater than what
Yeah.
our ego could possibly even conceive of.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So this approach is a bit by bit approach. Don't try to take on the whole cosmic idea at once. From a yogic point of view, we live our lives in a highly experimental way. That's why Gandhi called his life "My Experiments with Truth." So we say to ourselves, okay, if I take a prayer and I try to really bore down and understand the psychology of that prayer, and I do some prayer japa with it's contemplative prayer japa, not just you say a prayer and you're good for it. No, deeply thinking about the psychology of it, and then to say, okay, I'm going to try to base my actions, I'm going to try to base my feelings, I'm going to try to base my thoughts on the psychology of that prayer. See, that becomes a living experiment. See, and the greatest thing is you get to pick the prayer. You know, you say, what is, you find your favorite saints, and then you find the prayers that are most interesting to you. And then you really work on understanding, what does that prayer mean? You really enter the process of profound contemplative prayer, where you're thinking. You're constantly mulling over the implications of that prayer and the application. How would I do that? How would I make that work? See? And then you start doing it. Your life becomes a massive experiment. And also in that experiment, you're slowly inviting in the divine. Because that prayer is based on a holy psychic energy. An energy that was sanctified, that manifests itself as a prayer. So you're sort of like reverse engineering. By thinking about that prayer, working on it deeply, you start to become associated with the energy that allowed that prayer to manifest. And with that energy, you'll also start to acquire the intuitive understanding, see, and the intuitive application of that prayer. See? You work your way back. See, what happened with the saints is, in their meditation, the inspiration came and they wrote it down as a prayer. So they had direct contact, and then they reinterpreted and put it for our benefit. We can take that same prayer and work it backwards. See, we can reverse engineer and acquire the same inspiration and the same experience that they received in order to manifest that prayer. You see?
I have a relevant question.
Yes.
Ramamata set was talking about Gayatri,
Yes.
and a subtle detail like you should face the east in the morning when you do the mantra, and in the evening you should face the west. So you do the Gayatri and you don't know that detail. Are you doing damage to yourself?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. These are refinements. Simply because in truth, there is no east, west, and north. There's only east, west, and north based on, this piece of terra firma that we're sitting on. So we say this east, west, and north based on a relative condition. Okay?
Right.
This earth is not permanent. Now, why that statement has validity is because we're existing in this clay pot. Okay? This clay pot also has a electrical magnetic relationship to this larger clay pot that we call the earth. See? So it's like taking an antenna and turning it so that you get the best reception. See? So this clay pot, this electric magnetic clay pot is referencing this greater earth that has an electromagnetic current. So you're aligning them. See? So it's efficient, and so your nervous system takes in the information, you can process it. It's easier. Is it absolutely necessary? No. Because there is no north, south, east, and west to your higher psychic condition. But to this body antenna, and this great generator we call the earth, is there a relationship, electromagnetic relationship? Yes. if you turn this small clay pot in the right direction, will you have easier reception? Yes, you will. You definitely will. It will help. Is it absolutely necessary? No. Is it helpful? Yes. See?
Okay.
So a lot of times, the yogis will put kusha grass underneath them, or they'll put wool underneath them. That's because they're trying to limit the magnetic relationship of the earth to the subtle electrical dynamics of the body. See, it makes it simply easier, and especially in your early days, you want to use every advantage possible. See, just to make it easier. Just to make it easier. It does happen. It is real. In the temporal world, it is real. It does have a positive effect. Is it absolutely necessary? No. Is it very advantageous and useful? Yes. Okay?
Okay.
Any other questions? A lot of stuff we're talking about today. You're getting to see meditation in a very, very different way. You have to understand what you're up against. You have to understand the things that you've been doing that have been non-functional. Before you can untie a knot, you have to understand that the knot exists. See? You have to understand there's a knot. And in our case, we've got a lot of knots, thousands of them. So you have to understand, a lot of times people will start to meditate and then they'll feel all this discomfort. And they say, I don't want to deal with that, so I'm not going to do that. I'll do something else. I'll go to do volunteer work at Goodwill. Forget this meditation stuff. I'll do some social action. All good. But if you can understand that there's a good reason to go through those discomforts, that if you pass through those discomforts, you'll be done with it. It'll be over. You won't be holding on to it. It won't be stinging you every day. Then you say, okay, this is worth it. It's like taking a medicine that's bitter. But the back end of it, you're going to be well. You're not going to have that disease process anymore. So you take the bitter pill. This is part of meditation. You learn to say, okay, there's all kinds of discomfort I'm going to pass through. Body discomfort, emotional discomfort, intellectual discomfort. But it's worth it. Because the back end of that is psychological, emotional, physical freedom. Real freedom. Real freedom. See? Why do you love to sleep? Because in sleep you get some measure of freedom. Some measure of freedom. Why does a human being enjoy an orgasm? Because for a moment, everything is suspended. For a moment, everything is suspended. You're like, all your inhibitions, all your problems, all of your headaches are for just a moment suspended. See? Meditation brings you all those things, but it brings you them in a lasting, stable condition. See? It brings you a stable freedom. See? As mortal creatures, there's always fear, because something can sting us at any time. If you put the primary portion of your psychological disposition into your stable, immortal self, at that point, how afraid are you of the pinprick or the sting? It's so much less an issue. See? If you realize you're an immortal being as opposed to a mortal being, where's the fear of death? See? I mean, when you know that you're immortal, not just think of it. When you know you're immortal, then where's the fear of death? See? That's a huge neurosis that drives a lot of our behavior. Is what happens, when we kick the bucket. Do we, go into this dark abyss, or do we travel to a hell? But by knowing that your condition really is a condition of Sat Chit Ananda, full wisdom, purity, infinite beingness. If you come to know that, and you can only know that through meditation, then how you perceive the world becomes different. You can do what a Gandhi did, or you can do what a Saint Francis did, or you can do what a Jesus did, because they became fearless. They became fearless based on direct, personal, intuitive knowledge of what the real condition of life is, not the assumed temporal condition of life. See? They came from a point of stability and of direct knowing. That's what meditation wants to inform you. It wants to give you direct knowing of the real condition, not the real permanent condition, not the temporal momentary condition. See? So you base your life on a different parameter. You base your actions on a different parameter. If you were fearless, don't you think you'd be living a different life? If you were truly fearless? See? But because I am mortal, I don't want to be harmed, I don't want this, so we contract. We contract. We find a safe way to just sort of meander, wiggle through the world, and sort of try to get clobbered as least as possible. But if you look at, these great saints, they became fearless. They acquired a truth, and they lived a truth, come what may. They acquired a truth, they lived the truth, come what may. See? So this is what we have to do. And this is what meditation brings us to, that intuitive stability, the condition of truly knowing our constitution and our destiny and our true condition. See? And then make it as above, so below. The harmony there becomes the harmony here, becomes the harmony there. See? The sanctity there becomes the sanctity here, becomes the sanctity there. See? That's what meditation does. We become truly informed. But we do have a path of thorns to go through in order to come to that clarity. There's a lot of waste that has to be released. A lot of greater clarity. Not just your limited perception, but the perception of the ocean, not perception of the drop. Any other thoughts, ideas? Have I gotten some of the points through?
Is there any advantage to something like setting an intention to work on some aspect of yourself and then meditating?
Oh, that's a little interesting. My advice would be to do... my advice in general would be to separate the two functions. You can set noble intentions. That's important. The noble intention should be supported by scriptural study, prayer, mantra, meditation. But to say, I want to meditate and deal with a particular issue, see, the moment you say, I want to deal with a particular issue,
It's a prayer.
well, yeah, you're starting to create something. And in meditation, you don't want to create. See? So it's better to, as Nick just said, to inform yourself, to take it into prayer, to ask for help, ask for insight. So it's better to separate it. And then just the psychological function of studying a prayer that deals with those types of issues, and then trying to make that prayer real in your life, so that you have a process of action. But that process of action should not be in meditation. That process of action should be in prayer and direct action. See? So you separate the functions. Meditation should be about that pure stillness, pure awareness, pure acceptance. Come what may. That's meditation. The mantra, you can say, okay, I have a particular issue. You can use mantra to help resolve an issue. And you can use prayer to resolve an issue.